On this week's episode of The Riff, Drew talks about 4 things he loves and 1 thing he, well, doesn't. I hope The Riff is one of the 4 loves. We hope today is helpful. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to another episode of The Riff. Conveniently, we're in the same clothes as we were last
It's
Riff.
interesting. I wear the same thing on Riff Day.
Kind of like, every whatever day we shoot the Riff on.
Yeah. You are a minimalist, though, correct? Or is did you tell me the tattoos is about minimalism?
Yeah, I think here's what it is. It's striving for minimalism.
Yeah.
It's like saying someone's healthy and they're like, well, I strive to be healthy.
Who's a better minimalist, you or Mel?
For sure, me. I think.
Does she live in excess?
Sure. No, she doesn't. Our kids definitely do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, your kids are little. You got toys
everywhere. So this is where
everywhere.
I'd say, like, if it was just Mel and I really think both of us would be that.
Yeah.
And since we have kids, it's just totally, it's totally
hard.
different.
Yeah.
And
It
just
changes
the
things.
amount of, Beckham's at that age where he's got like $80. Just from like Christmas, birthday. So he's like, I'm rich.
Oh, yeah.
And we always say this, like, we'll go to stores. He's like, I want that. Can I get that? I'd be like, oh, you bring your money? No. Okay. Well, he started to wise up and now he brings his money everywhere.
Yeah.
He's got a wallet.
Oh, yeah.
And so now we have to, like, I'm really having to walk through, like, buddy, like, hey, like, one day you're going to want a car, man. One day you're going to want this money.
Yeah.
Not saying you can't spend any of it, but also you're buying things just to buy them. You don't actually want what you're getting. Like, one of the things he brought his money in, he bought this toy and it's like a kid's toy. I'm like, dude, you're already older than this toy. And he played with it like twice. And I like called him on the bluff. I was like, well, like, he's like, but Dad, I'm bored. Well, go in the room and play with your toy that you bought. Like, you should just play with that.
Right.
And so it's already up for, like, we're already like, we're checking that thing out. Yeah. Yeah.
Just give it to Kristen. She'll sell it on Facebook Marketplace for $2.
Okay, I have done that before. We don't live that way anymore. Now we live too close. We live right by like a Red Racks, and I'm like, dude, please take it all.
Yeah,
take it all. Just have it all. Yeah. I hate that I am that way, but I'm like, we purge very very regularly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I grew up. My mom was so my grandmother kept everything. She was like Great Depression, lived through that. So you keep everything. Like, so if you went through my grandma's house, it was like, it wasn't like hoarders, but it was like a lot of stuff that people wouldn't think that you would want to keep, like egg cartons. Like she would keep she had stacks. I mean, talking like 50 of them. Like, well, I might need those one day. Just all of that concept. Like, well, you could, you live through the Great Depression, you keep stuff because you never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah.
Some of the pendulum swung the other way with my mom. She was like if you haven't used it in the last year, it's garbage. Like, get it out of here. Which I probably slant a little bit more that way. But yeah, it's like, hey, like, don't keep stuff you don't use or need. Get it going.
Yes.
Get it going.
And there's a lot of those systems too of like turn the hangers. You probably heard this.
Oh, I haven't.
On your like especially with like clothes, because there's things that just like add up that you're like, how did I? And like I'm at that age now where I've been the same size for like the last few years, so clothes go bad before. I can't fit it in anymore.
They ugly out before they wear out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, you're supposed to turn the hangers and once you use it, then you return the hanger the other way. And if you haven't used it in the last like 6 months, you do that at the beginning of the year. And then, if you haven't used it in the last like quarter, basically, it's like,
because when you
just get rid of it.
You start doing that stuff, you start realizing like when you're somewhere and you see a shirt you want to buy, you're like, wait a minute, is that hanger going to turn more than one time?
Dude. And everything you buy or everything you bring into your house was once money. I think there's a piece of me that sits there and I'm like, oh man, like we're getting rid of all this stuff. That was once money.
Yeah.
And we chose to spend it on that.
We got to have a whole, we need to do a Dave Ramsey financial
we'll just
podcast.
do a North Point garage sale.
Yeah.
Everybody bring a bunch of, bring a bunch of what you got.
Yeah.
Proceeds will go to the Dream Center. So
I like it.
Here we go.
I like it.
I like it if somebody else is running it. Okay, but hold on. What were we talking about today? We're riffing.
We're riffing.
That is, you know what? We are.
Yeah.
And that's the name of the podcast. So,
we're not leadership stuff.
Okay. No. You came in. So it's a snowy day. You came in, not a lot of people in the office. And one of your thoughts were like, man, if we get it all office out of the same place.
Yeah.
Which might not be a reality because like we actually can't fit our whole team in here. Nor would we want to make some of our team members drive like 30 minutes to one of the locations so that we can all sit down and work on our computers together. Well, separately, but together. But it did spark an idea of just like culture.
Yeah.
And you'd walk through kind of on our last staff meeting, a few things. You kind of had, hey, here's 4 things I love. Here's 1 thing I don't. And I'd love to hit a little bit on that, those 4 things. And then you brought up some isms. You talked about a lot of different things. But one, walk me through those 4 things that you love.
Yeah.
Or do you want to hit the thing you don't like first?
We do the 4 things I love.
There we go.
That was a communication
Good news or bad
trick.
news? Which one do we want?
Exactly. I think, culture, I'll go 4 things I love. So with the team on our first staff meeting, just like month 1 observations, things I love about, what we're doing. And like one thing I was like, man, this is one thing I don't love, that was intentional because then everyone's like, well, what's the one thing?
Totally. Oh, I'd stick around for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it one of the individual team members?
Yeah, exactly.
Say their name.
Yeah. The one thing I don't love is sitting over there. No, it was, so the 4 things was like just the team in general. Like the team's been extremely welcoming and not just like hospitality, yes, but also just everyone's just been all in and like, how can we support? How can we help? How can we grow? And this team is easy to love. We have about, how many total people are on staff here?
I want to say like 50 something.
Yeah. If you count Dream Center all in. Yeah. So it's 40, 50 people and it's just a great vibe. It's a team you want to work with and for. Like when the team's together, people are laughing, having fun. They're working hard, but it's also like there's a good vibe. There's good energy in the team, and hospitality. So it's like a team you want to be on, And so, because everyone's been a part of teams where you're like, not people I'd want to hang out with, but I'm like, man, genuinely, I would love to hang out with these people more. Now we are split up across different campuses, so we're not all in the same place very often, and so that's I'd love to. But
when we are,
more.
it's a reminder of like,
this is great. These people are awesome.
Yeah.
I think I talked about tenacity. There's an energy on the team of just get it done. So that's part of the culture that you've built, that Jeremy's built, that Justin has built over the years of just, hey, there's a go get it done, make stuff happen attitude the team has. And so there's just certain things that I've just noticed it's not an excuse mongering culture. A lot of people start with why we couldn't, why we can't. Or a reactive, I'm going to wait and do nothing until I'm told to do something. I don't pick up on any of that with the team at all. I'm like, man, this team's awesome. Like everyone's proactive, fighting to get wins in their own space and in their own lane. And there's a we have the five H's of our team culture. So this would be good to know just in general, like how do we operate? And again, this is something that you and Justin and Jeremy had built over the years. So the 5 H's like definitely bleed through. I don't know them all, but I'm gonna try. Hungry.
Which just to label that, hungry is like spiritual hunger.
Yeah.
So hey, you've got a hunger for God. Yep.
Humble.
That one is self-explanatory.
Hustle.
Yeah, you work hard.
Yeah.
Get it done. Nothing's not your. Oh yeah. Yeah, you work hard. You get it done.
Hungry, humble, hustle. I don't know. You got to helpful.
Yeah, I was trying to mouth it to you, but like
helpful.
Maybe I have wrong syllable. Yeah, that one is nothing's ever not your job.
And what's the 5th one?
Hopeful. Let's be raging optimists.
Yeah.
Instead of Eeyores and like, that won't work. It's hey, why wouldn't that work?
I think the 5H handle, like I didn't, again, on the way in, I didn't really, it was in the pipeline of things I needed to learn. Like, what is this thing? But just being around it, like all 5 of those things like describe, like, this team is those 5 things for sure. And that's awesome. And so that takes time and intentionality and clarity to create. I think a lot of organizations never actually define what they're expecting from people. And so then when people are either on culture or off culture, then it's like, well, they're not us,
like
or they don't really get it. And it's like, have you ever really defined what it is or who we are? Mm. And so like those 5 H's like clearly have taken root in the hearts and minds of the team. And I think even if you're listening, you're like, hey, what is it? To be a part of like North Point, it's like a safe place to find and follow Jesus. But to be a part of the team, like our staff, it's like we expect those 5 things to be good stewards of the mission that we're all driving. And so anyway, it's been great to see that.
And I think there's a lot of people that want, I wouldn't say a lot, there's people that want to work at North Point and they're like, because then I will learn more about God, because then I will get to a certain spot in my faith. Then I will start to become more like the staff. And it's like, no, you don't lead for health, you lead from health.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's identify these 5 H's.
Yeah.
If you want to be on this team, if you want to, because I think a lot of people would be like, I dig the mission. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, there's got to be more than that.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to have a foundation of health. And what is that? And to identify that, define that, It is those 5 H's.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, can you live that out? Is that you? What area, and for all of us, there's going to be one of those H's is easier and one of those H's is harder to do based on your personality and who you are. But yeah.
Yeah. I love it because a lot of organizations don't have that. They don't ever define it. And so then it's hard to like understand what we're looking for. So that was, one was the team, 2 is like the tenacity and like the five H's. Feedback culture was the third one, where I worked with a lot of organizations in a previous life trying to help them get to a place where they would just give honest feedback to each other.
So you're saying everyone's just like, oh, I don't want to offend, or it's not my place. I don't want to say it.
I want to dance around it. Okay. You have high ego leaders who actually don't receive feedback well. And so then it's like no one ever gives feedback up is typically the deal. And then feedback is used as a weapon. It's like, well, I'm gonna give you some feedback. And then it's like, that's basically saying I'm going to verbally punch you in the face.
No offense, but.
No offense.
I totally mean to offend you here.
Yeah, don't be offended by this, but. So I think there's like and so you have a toxic, like that creates toxicity in teams when there's no actual honest feedback happening. And so no one can give feedback, but then people can't receive feedback. And so there's and that goes both ways. I think if you're a leader, wherever you work, you need to give feedback in a helpful, positive way, and then earn the right to give it. So like a book that I read that was a game changer for me is just Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Talks about do you care deeply and then give people direct feedback. So do you care enough about someone, and then can you challenge directly? And so if you care about somebody, you can challenge them. You can give them radical candor, which can change somebody's life. It's like, hey, I really care about you, but I'm going to radically challenge you on something specific, and it might be on one of those 5 H's. Like, hey, we say we're hopeful here, but there's a pessimism about the way you communicate.
First reaction's always no. We can't do that. That can't be done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so like, or the hustle thing. It's like, hey, you come in 4 minutes late every single time, and you're kind of waiting to be told what to do all the time instead of like going and finding your own way to be productive. And so just like those concepts where if you have a handle like the 5 H's, and then you can care deeply and be radically like candid with people, you can really help people grow and develop. Kim Scott starts that book. She's like, I had this person who worked for me. He worked for me, and he had some characteristics about him that were just not good. Like he wasn't good at certain areas of his job, but he was so likable. Everybody loved him. He was just like, everyone loved the person, but he had some tendencies that were just, he'd be late. His written communication was always kind of sloppy, things like that, to where she's like, we never really confronted him or talked about it because we just liked him so much. We didn't want to hurt his feelings. So then we went through a reorg at my company. He ended up working for someone else, and they ended up ultimately firing him for those things and time. And she was like, and I felt like it was my fault because I knew that he had those gaps, but I never said anything about it at all because I didn't have the courage to actually give him feedback. And then he went to another like less graceful leader and ultimately lost his job. And she's like, that's on me. I knew the problem was there. I just never said anything, And so if you're listening to this and wherever you work, whatever you're doing, radical candor is a simple concept framework you can use to help bridge that gap. But coming into North Point, what I found is the team here seems to be pretty good at giving feedback and receiving feedback. On the receiving feedback front, I would tell you that no matter where you work, you should always be asking up, how am I doing? If you're not getting feedback, go ask. Go ask your leader, hey, and ask open-ended questions that give them permission. So things like, hey, I really want to learn and get better. I know that you said I'm doing a good job, but it would really be helpful for me if you could point out 1 or 2 things that I could improve on. Or when someone asks you, hey, can you go do this? Even to stop me like, hey, I'm going to do that. Can you tell me about a time it was done really well? And what would that look like for me to just knock this out of the park for you? And if you take the time as a follower, everyone talks about leadership. Not enough people talk about followership. If you learn to be a great follower of someone else's vision and learn to and invite feedback into your world, you would be surprised at how much help you can get from people who honestly, they know, they see your blind spots. They just don't want to hurt your feelings. And so if you can come across as someone who's got thick skin and a soft heart where you can take the feedback and actually grow and develop with it, you're essentially unstoppable in the workplace, no matter where you work, because most people don't do that. So one thing I've found in the team at North Point is people are alarmingly comfortable with giving and receiving feedback. So part of our process every week.
You said alarmingly.
It's great though. I mean, honestly, so a lot of people probably don't know is on Saturday nights after the Saturday night service, we hop on a Zoom call between Nixa and Springfield teams. That's our Saturday night locations. And we have a very honest, short, quick hitting conversation on what worked and what didn't. Everything from production, lights, sound. Did we hit our time right? Did that new song we tried, did it work or not? When we tried to do something, like, how did it go? And even on the message, that's the thing we do. It's like, hey, we sit there after Saturday night and we give honest feedback on, hey, when you said this, like, that was awesome. Also, when you said this, it kind of made it sound disconnected, or I think you meant this, but it could have come across the wrong way.
Absolutely.
Or like, hey, there's an audience in the room that probably might have heard that differently. And so like, or just like, Alvarez told me after one service, he was like, hey, that was good, but it sounded like you had two messages in one and you just kind of like stapled them together. And I was like, he's right. He's right.
Yeah, you know it as a communicator. It's just sometimes it's like, how do you do it? Yeah, absolutely.
And so like as a leader,
it's always helpful.
What's important for me in that moment, because whether I agree with the feedback or not, because that's the thing, I'm not just listening to you. Like we have our production teams who are not up speaking every week. Totally. But you know what I care about? I care about what they think. Like we have Nick, who does some of our production and media stuff.
He's a theologian.
He is.
He's a Bema theologian.
He's a big Bema guy right there.
Guy.
The Bema.
Give him.
Yeah. But you know what? But he's given me a couple nuggets where he's like, hey, you could think about this, or pointing me to a resource. And I'm like, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And so I think if as a leader, invite feedback into your world, and you don't have to do everything about, like, you can't just be everyone's puppet to do what everyone says you think you should do, but it's like, invite that feedback, because as a leader, when you invite feedback on yourself, you're actually giving everyone permission to give it laterally, and people are watching how you handle it. If you take it personal, if you get weird, if you be like, well, who are they to say this? And don't they know how hard I tried to do, like if you start getting weird about receiving feedback and criticism, then you're setting a tone that no one else is going to take and receive feedback. And then that organization doesn't get better. The team doesn't get better. So I think that's where you got to watch the tape and constantly be growing, and you don't get better without people's feedback. And that's one thing I've just learned at North Point. It's like, man, the first time I spoke and went through that meeting, I'm like, I thought it was awesome that people had the guts to tell a guy they barely knew what he could do when he re-preaches that sermon Sunday morning to make it better. I was like, that indicates a healthy culture that you've created, that Justin has created, that Jeremy created, where, hey, no one's above getting better. And it goes back to the 5 H's, right? Humble, hustle, hungry. Like those are all things that that if you have those things, like you're going to create a winning team. And I think this team wins in a lot, in part because of that.
Yeah, and when everyone wants the same outcome anyway, like we all want to be better. We all want this to be a better experience. We all want more people to find and follow Jesus. We all want to create this kind of environment that's safe for people to grow and experience Jesus. Like when you have that in mind, the ego gets dropped, right? The walls come down, and it's like, this is what's important. And I'll take anything from anyone to make that experience better, or to connect in a different way. And so, you've modeled that so well coming in. It's very easy to feel like you've got insecurities. You're like, I don't know what everyone thinks of me. And I'm about to be super vulnerable, sharing my entire heart to everybody, and then coming back and being like, so did you like it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Did like that make sense? Okay, cool. And everyone's gonna have a different opinion. Sometimes we get in there and there are two like, well, I loved that part. Well, I didn't like that part. And so you still got to wrestle with that. But ultimately, you've modeled that so well. Of this is the outcome we want. And so I think either could work. And it's just great that people are sharing that feedback, because we all get better because someone sees a different side. And different angle.
And most people listening to this have worked in a place where that wasn't the case. Yeah. Where it's like, you definitely did not tell the senior guy what he could do better. That was like a fast track to get blacklisted and gone. So and so people have worked for that boss, people have worked for that leader, people have, done business with that company, where it's like, you just can't be real, And so everyone takes it personal, everyone's feelings get hurt. And it's like, you have to love the mission and the outcome more than yourself and your ego. And when you get to that place, like your team becomes, you can create a killer team. So that was number 3, was that. The last one was systems and processes. I'm terrible at creating systems and process, but I won't live in a world without them. And so I always think most teams and organizations have, I think if there's an organization, an organism, your systems and process are like the skeleton of the body. It's how I think about it. It's like, if you don't have structure on how we do certain things that is documented, systematized, where everyone can run the play, then it doesn't matter if you don't have a skeleton, this is a weird analogy, but like if you had no bones, you'd just be a pile of skin and guts on the floor. It's like, you know what I mean? It would just be like, what is this pile of nonsense? You're like, oh, his eyes are so great. Yeah, but you laser like a blob of flesh. You know what I mean? Like you have to have bones.
Fragile.
I can't see your bones, but I know that they're there because it's the structure on which everything else sits. And so we have structures around like connection cards. We have structures around week-to-week processes and rhythms. We have processes around prayer requests. Like when people fill out those prayer request cards, there's a system, and I know what time of the day my phone's going to ding and be like, here's all the prayer requests from Springfield, because someone has that job, someone has a checklist, someone has all the things they do to make that happen. So anyway, a lot of churches are very sloppy about this. They're very sloppy on systems because we just spiritualize everything, and it's like, well, this is like the least pastoral thing I'll probably say today, but like some things you don't need to pray about, you just need to do. Like, don't pray about whether or not you should return that phone call or pray about whether you should do the thing on your to-do list. Just do it. And so being structured and organized, the Bible talks about administration being a spiritual gift. Like some people have a spiritual gift of administrating. And there are a few of those people at North Point on the team that you probably don't see on the stage very often, but they 100% are one of the main reasons this place is what it is. And they don't want to be on the stage. They don't want a microphone. They want to sit behind the scenes and make the structure work. And if you've ever been on a team that didn't have that, it was all flair and hype and motivation, inspiration, but no follow-up. That is a very frustrating place to work. And so, I think it's one thing we do well.
And we probably don't even have time for the one thing you don't like. Like we probably I'm just playing.
Yeah, we can. We can let
Some
it
of
linger.
you've been waiting this entire podcast. You're like, yeah. Okay, the things you like, whatever. Give me the one thing you don't. I really want to know.
You want to know
now? Yeah, let's do
it. And this is coming from someone who has not worked my whole career like at a church, or really at a church at all. Like fun fact, I've worked around churches, with churches. I've served, volunteered, helped build churches, but never like on staff working at one. But the one thing I said that I'm not a fan of, and this isn't like a rampant problem, but it can become, no matter where you work, it can become a thing. And it's cynicism. It's and specifically when you're at a church, cynicism towards the church, like the capital C church, or specifically other churches. Now, before we get like hyper, like, what did he say? Look, if you work at Starbucks, guess what you're going to be constantly doing? Looking at the coffee
Scooters, 7 Brew, Dutch Bros.
You know what they don't do well? You know what? Like
they don't even use real coffee. They,
Right.
I don't like,
So when you're in any industry, it is your job to understand the competition. When I sold cell phones for T-Mobile, I paid my way through school doing that. But once, like every week, I would cruise in and I would go down the strip mall and I would pop in the AT&T store and the Verizon store and I would pull their flyers that had like all their rate plans or whatever, because I just wanted to understand every customer who came into my store that was a potential buyer was going to walk down the strip mall. I wanted to understand what they were doing. And so my job was to be critical of them, in a sense. And so,
here's why we're better.
100%.
Here's why you would choose us.
Yeah. So here's what happens though when you get when you're an insider or like when you're in an industry per se, and people might think that sounds weird when we're talking about a church, but like it happens in every industry. It just is what it is. Like that's going to sound wrong to somebody. I'll get an email complaint. But like when you're an insider working anywhere, you can tend to get cynical about your own expertise in your own lane. And there's a difference between critical thinking and a critical spirit. And so critical thinking helps you think through problems, pros, cons. What could we do better? How do we always improve? Like we're talking about, like even preaching or speaking. It's like, I'm going to watch my sermons every Sunday afternoon. I go home and I watch it and I hate it.
Oh yeah.
I hate doing it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, why did I say too much? Even listening to the riff, the amount of verbal, like I say all the time and I didn't know that. So I started listening to the riff. Now you're going to hear it nonstop. It's going to be annoying. I also give verbal head nods way too much. You'll be talking. I'm like, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. So like now, but listening to that and watching it, like critical thinking tells me, oh, you gotta adjust and change. That's good. Critical thinking, smart people are always thinking critically about how to improve or make things better. A critical spirit is when that goes from your head into your heart and you have a disposition of criticism and cynicism towards other people, other things. And then all of a sudden you become the Eeyore, where it can be something where it's like, hey, we're negative about that church or the overall church. And I think for people like me and you who grew up as pastors' kids, dude, we could do 5 riffs on all the stupidity in the church we've seen growing up. All the nonsense, all the hypocrisy, all the things that the church should have been but wasn't, all the ways we got hurt by the church. Yeah. We could do a season of episodes on that subject and not run out of material. Is it helpful? And I think there's a critical thinking that says, okay, we want to make sure we don't we understand why that happened and how do we become a safe place so we don't recreate wounds of the past or recreate systems or philosophies that are actually hurtful towards people. Critical thinking, yes, we should do that. Critical spirit is the church is always this, the church is never that. A critical spirit turns into always and nevers and starts bucketing everything into one big thing. And I think when you start to get cynical towards the very thing you're trying to build. And so that's one thing that just in general, and again, it wasn't like this is how North Point is. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying, hey, let's not be industry insiders. As someone who's new to it, I'm fresh and excited about certain things that a couple times I've run into like, well, it's just, I'm like, well, wait, no, I'm still excited about this. Don't let your tenure in something cause you to get cynical. And that would apply to, again, whatever you're into. That could apply to whatever business job you're doing. It could apply to a relationship that you're in. Familiarity can breed contempt. And just when we're building something as sacred to God as a church, let's not get negative towards it at all. Let's acknowledge we're a pile of imperfect people. You're going to hurt my feelings one day. I'm going to hurt yours. It's going to happen. So do we then just say, well, the church did this, the church did that? No, like Drew did that. And why? Because he's a flawed person and he messed up and he made a mistake. Welcome to the club, or in just that idea of like the church is the bride of Christ. If you want to like look at it like theologically, it is it is that picture. So when I think about that picture, I'm careful to be negative towards the church or any church, even ridiculous ones that I see online. I don't want to get cynical towards them because it's still the bride of Christ, and you can, if I was great to you, but negative and cynical about your wife, how far would our friendship go? Just wouldn't. If you're like, Drew, you're awesome, but Kristen, let me tell you all the things that's wrong with her. Those shoes, woof. If you started getting negative towards my wife, I'd be like, dude, what? No, you're cool. You're cool, Jesus.
I'm not saying that to you.
I love Jesus, but the church, and that's a huge movement in our generation right now. And like that to me, I'm like, man, I get it. I do. I understand. I see all the things. I could tell the same stories, but I still come back to the place Jesus loves this thing. And so I will too. And I'm going to love it through the mess. I'm going to love it through the problems it has. I'm going to love it through the people that Jesus loves, but you think are annoying. Jesus loves them. So I have to make that choice to do the same, So anyway, I'm preaching, didn't mean to preach on that, but like, that's the thing that I think about, and where I just notice, okay, Drew, don't get negative on it as you get further down the road in this. Don't become such an insider in an expert at church that you become so familiar with it and you spend so much time doing critical thinking about it and how to make it better and how to improve it. And yes, watching what other churches are doing to learn and grow, like that's all part of what you should do in any role that you have in life and when any assignment God gives you. But don't let the critical thinking turn into critical spirit. And I think that's where you'll know critical spirit's going to go to always and nevers. It's going to lump everything into the whole, and it will look for the flaws before it looks for the gold. And it'll make more noise about the negative side of things than the positive attributes about a thing,
And something I find so fascinating is Jesus critiqued Judaism from within. Yeah. It wasn't like, man, he talks about the Pharisees, a bunch of hypocrites. I don't even want to be a part of what you're doing because it does allow some sort of critique there. At the same time, what I love is, you talk about us growing up in church, and I've seen a lot of different structures, a lot of different missions, a lot of different strategies, and thank God. Yeah. Thank God. What you said even, you'd said the last podcast about head, heart, hands. Like people respond differently to different things.
Yeah.
And people have different experiences. They have different pasts. They have different preferences. They have different styles. And obviously we're not here to just serve people's preferences. At the same time, like there are things that speak to you. There are communicators that speak to you. There is music that speaks to you. There are different, different strokes for different folks. Okay. Yeah, and so that is the thing where like, thank God that there are different expressions of Jesus in our community,
right?
Where it's not a one size fits all cookie cutter Christian. It's building different people for different things, for different missions. And, we probably look at both of our parents. I'm like, we love them to death. And God gave my dad a different mission than he gave me.
Same.
And it's important to identify that. As much as we were both on Team Jesus, it's like, we express that differently. Yeah. And that is actually, that's not a downfall. That's a feature.
Right.
That
it's
is
not a bug,
awesome.
It's a feature. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because if you think it's a bug, then it's like, well, then you think that the way we're doing it is the right way.
It's the only way.
Only way. Then you think we're elite, we're better. And the truth is we're not.
Yeah.
We're what we want to be is faithful to what God has called us to be in this city and in this region. And we're going to go do that. And other people are called to a different expression of that. And so that's where ego, pride can creep in and say our way is the way, which makes their way the wrong way, which then makes them the object of my scorn, because now me is the measuring rod to which everything else should be measured up to. And if you're not measuring up to the way I do it, that is that's selfishness and arrogance. And that, again, that's true no matter what you do. That applies to your marriage. It applies to your family. It applies to whatever. And so accepting, like, I got to be faithful to the thing God's called me to be faithful to. And stay in that lane and be a promoter of what God's doing. Met with somebody from Project Rescue last week and just talking about they're actually trafficking. They're an anti-trafficking organization, and we'll talk more about them in the future, I'm sure. But I was asking about funding sources, and he was like, it comes from the churches, and it's like, I just met so many organizations, cross lines, that's feeding and taking care of the homeless and the needy, doing food pantries, all of the classes, all of these things. They have a whole store for kids to come in and buy brand new clothes for free. They're prom dresses kids who don't have a tuxedo or a dress to go to prom, you can come into Cross Lines and get one for free. But where's that coming from? They're like, the church. So people can bag on organized religion all they want. I get it, but when I look around the city, who's feeding people? Convoy of Hope. Where's a lot of their funding from? Churches. Where does the outpost for which they distribute that? Churches. And so I just think, flaws, yep. Problems, yep. Issues, yep. All that is true. What's also true is there is no other organization on the planet like the local church that is feeding and reaching people and making a difference for good in the world. It is a global powerhouse of an organization that is changing the world for the better on the macro scale. So focus on that.
And we can't do it without you. I mean, so that's every person matters. Every person's got a part to play, and it's not what you have is not too big and it's not too small. It is just enough. And when everybody plays their part, I just believe that the needs in our community are going to get met.
Yep.
And so that's your challenge today. Riff Raff, we'll see you next week for another episode.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.